Hello, Eurovision friends. Thank you so much for coming to my channel, Eurovision Histories, for this, my first Eurovision battle of the season. And I'm starting with a big one. This is 2024 versus 2025. So what I'm going to do is I'll look at each country and the two songs from 2024 and 2025 and tell you, based on my personal subjective opinion, that is very important, which of the two songs is better, and then the year that won the battle will get a point. And at the end, we will see which of the 2 years I personally like best. If you ask me now, I would say that I think 2024 was a bit better than 2025, but I don't think that what most people say, that 2025 is a very bad year, is true at all. So let's get right to it. The first country we look at is Albania, and we have Shkondra Elektronike with Jam from this year versus Besa from last year. This is a very easy start to these battles because Germ is one of my favorites this year. It is just so melodious and so perfect in its own way. The main singer performs this incredibly well. And Besa was a good performance, but if I'm completely honest, I can't quite remember what the song goes like. So that is probably not a good sign. And so the first point goes to 2025 quite easily. Then we have Armenia, Park, and Survivor versus Lada Niva from last year. Also quite easy. Park's performance is vocally shaky. It's quite chaotic to me. I don't quite find a melody in the song, unfortunately. And Lada Niva was such a fun, cool performance, such a charismatic main singer, and the staging was cool as well. I gotta say, obviously, there's a bit of bias because I know the big Eurovision staging for the 2024 songs. Obviously, I don't know them for the 2025 songs, so that's a bit of an advantage for 2024, I guess. But I've listened to the songs from 2025 more recently, so there's a bit of recency bias, and in the end, that might be balanced out quite a bit. So this point goes to 2024 quite easily as well. Then we have Austria. JJ versus Colleen. I'm not a huge fan of either of these entries, Sorry Neighbors, because of JJ's vocals, which I just can't get to listen to, and I don't really like to listen to these very operatic voices. And We Will Rave seemed a teeny tiny bit generic and a bit cheap to me as well. But if we speak objectively, I think JJ's entry is just better when it comes to composition, lyrics as well, vocals as well, objectively again. And so I'll give this point to 2025. Then we have Czechia, Adonis versus Aiko. Aiko's song was one of my least favorite songs. They improved the performance a lot from the national final to the Eurovision stage, but Adonis's voice is just so special to me. I love these deep male voices. The song is good enough. It's a bit repetitive. I don't love the dance break, but overall it's a much better package, I think, in 2025 than it was in 2024. So I'll give that one to 2025 as well, which is taking an early lead. Quite surprising. Then we have Denmark. Again, Sorry Neighbors, but I'm not a huge fan of either of these songs. Sand was just way too repetitive and very generic, quite good vocals, pretty good staging, but otherwise not that great. And Hallucination, I didn't quite get why this was the big fan favorite and why it won the national final either. I think the staging could be improved, and then I might be a bigger fan of it. But I don't find it very catchy either. Listening to it in the recaps, it's growing on me a little bit. And so, yeah, overall, I give this point to 2025, but by a smidge only. Then we have Estonia, 5 Minutes and Pulust from last year. I think Pulup, I think is the name. And then Tommy Cash from this year. If you've seen my top 32 video, you know that Tommy Cash is dead last in that, and he will stay there, I'm quite sure. And 5 Minutes and Pulust was a fun entry, so I'm giving this one to 2024. Next up, Iceland, Roa versus Hera Björk, and Web versus Hera Björk, I should say. Not a great fan of either of these entries, but Hera Björk's was incredibly generic, and Vape at least is a lot of fun to watch, very entertaining. So I'll give this one to 2025, still in the lead. Then we have Ireland, Emmy versus Bambi Thug. I wasn't a great fan of the antics of Bambi Thug last year, but the staging was incredible. The song was not a great favorite of mine, but quite special and experimental, and I like that. And Emmy's voice, I'm not a big fan of. The song itself is not really my cup of tea. The lyrics I find a bit cringe. And so this point goes to 2024. Then this is two countries because Moldova unfortunately withdrew and we have Montenegro back. So I'm pitting these two against each other. Moldova's song last year was incredibly forgettable. I can't quite remember what it goes like. And Dobro Došli is one of my favorites, among my favorites at least. Great dramatic performance. I love the lyrics. I love that it's in a national language as well. And so this point quite easily goes to 2025. Then this is incredibly hard for me. We have Switzerland, Zoe May versus Nemo. I think both of these songs are amazing. Switzerland is on a great trajectory in the last couple of years. I know that the Swiss song this year is not a big fan favorite, but I absolutely love this. I love her voice. I love the softness of it, the lyrics. Obviously, I loved the code as well for being so experimental, so special. The incredible vocals. The staging was impactful more than any staging last year almost. Well, there are a few. I'm going to get to those in a minute. But this is very hard for me. However, in the end, I went with 2025 because I think Switzerland is actually my favorite this year. And last year it was among my favorites, but not my favorite overall. So please don't unsubscribe if you disagree with this. Do let me know in the comments if you disagree and why you disagree. Then we have the Netherlands, Claude versus Euro Papa from last year. I liked last year's song, Joost Klein's song. But I didn't love the antics after the incident happened. And some of the things I saw in the last couple of weeks, the song with Tommy Cash, for example, I'm not a big fan of. However, I do love the song, the message, the pro-Europe message, the beautiful message about his parents as well. And it was a catchy song as well. However, Claude also has a very touching message in his song. It feels radio-friendly and could have been generic, but I feel coziness. I can't quite explain what I feel when listening to this song, but it's cool, it's slick, and it's very well produced as well. And so I'm giving this point to 2025 as well. Then, this is another moment where some of you might unsubscribe, so please let me explain. I do love Ramonda, but after listening to it a couple of times during the season, it kind of grew off me. It became more and more of a song that didn't quite catch my attention. I love the lyrics, they're very well done. I love her voice and her whole stage presence as well. However, I seem to be very alone with this, but I think Mila is actually a very interesting song when it comes to the structure, the instrumentation. I think he performs it really well. I hate the staging from the national final, but they have said that they will revamp it and hopefully it will be less cliche. And so I am going to give this point to 2025, which is in a huge lead, which I did not expect. But yeah, please don't unsubscribe if you disagree. Then we have Slovenia. I think most people will disagree with my decision here. I liked 2024 for the vibe, for the cool lyrics, telling a story from the Middle Ages. I like this year as well. It is very direct, but I still like the song. I like his way of performing it and the simpleness of it. But anyway, this point goes to 2024 quite easily. Then we have Australia. Again, not a big fan of either of these entries, but this year is just too much for me. It's fun, I get that, but the lyrics are too much and some other things are also too much. And in 2024, it had a cool message. The staging didn't quite work out 100%, but still I prefer 2024 to 2025. So the point goes to 2024. Then we have Azerbaijan. Again, I might be a bit alone with loving this year's entry quite a bit. I think it's modern, I think it's catchy. And last year's entry was interesting with some traditional elements as well, like this year. But this point quite easily goes to 2025 again. Then we have Belgium. Woo, I love both of these entries. They're very, very different, obviously. I liked the way Musti's entry builds towards a climax, and Red Sebastian's entry is not building. It is high intensity throughout, which I also like quite a bit. The vocals for both are a bit questionable. We shall see how everything works out. The staging in 2024 was not great. There was a strange vibe you got from him, unfortunately. We don't know how the staging will look like this year. But when it comes to the quality of the song overall, I would give this to 2024. Not easy, but yeah, 2024 takes this one. Then we have Finland. This one is very easy. Windows 95 Man made me laugh every time I watched it, but it feels a bit cheap watching it now again. With the jokes are a bit tired, and it is a kind of a catchy song, but still, this year is a cool composition, a catchy song. I have some issues with some things, but this is very easily a win for 2025. Who's next? France. That's another one that's very hard for me. They look quite similar in the photos, and the songs are quite similar as well. They're French ballads. The vocals for Slimane were more impressive, I think, but I prefer the lyrics for Luan's song. There's an actual deep, deep meaning, whereas Mon Amour also had a meaning, but it wasn't as personal, I think. And I really love both of these. I'm really a sucker for French ballads, if you haven't noticed yet. This might be recency bias, but I'm giving this to Luan. Yeah. Then we have Georgia. Easily, this is 2024. A bit of a generic song in 2024 too, but 2025 is just such a boring ballad to me. Easily 2024. Then we have Italy. Like both of these, Lucio Corsi's lyrics are among the best this year, but I also loved Angelina Mango's lyrics quite a bit, but the song is just more catchy and interesting to me when it comes to the composition, so I'm giving this one to 2024. Then we have Latvia, a kind of generic, well-sung ballad in 2024 by Dons versus a very experimental, different, magical thing, Burman Laimi in 2025. And so, yeah, quite easily this goes to 2025. The staging is such a special moment as well. Yeah, very easily 2025. Then we have Lithuania, The Neighbors. Two songs with very similar vibes, at least when it comes to my feeling when I listen to these songs. Luke Telk is a bit more engaging and more catchy and more standard pop in a way, even though it isn't. And this year's song is a vibe, definitely. I'm usually not a big fan of pop songs, but I think I'm giving this one to 2025 as well, because I just love the way they create this vibe on stage. And we have Norway, Gorte in 2024 versus Kyle Alessandro in 2025. This year's song is a good pop song. I don't love the lyrics. He's very charismatic. He's very young, but still already a very good performer. But Gorte was just an experience watching that. They came last, but I still like it a lot. And so this one goes to 2024 for me. Then we have Poland, Luna and the Tower versus Gaia by Justina. Again, I'm not a great fan of either of these songs, and Luna kind of damaged her song a little bit with the staging. But Gaia is just a bit too messy for me, and I just don't quite get it yet. I see that a lot of fans love this a lot and don't understand why it's always so low in my rankings. But it hasn't clicked yet. Maybe it will later on. So for now, this one goes to 2024. Then we have Portugal. Grito by Yolanda was, I think, my favorite in the end, or at least in my top three. And Deslocado is a sweet, nice song, but this one is very easily going to 2024, as you can see. Then we have Spain, another easy one. I was a big fan of Zora for the lyrics and the tongue-in-cheekness and this diva-esque performance that they put on stage. And Melody's song is fine, but it's just not my personal thing, my personal cup of tea. And so this one very easily goes to 2024 as well. Then we have Sweden. Marcus and Martinez, a very generic, kind of forgettable, ironically pop song. They had an amazing staging, they performed it well, but Kai is just on another level for me, makes me smile every time I listen to it, which is something that is very important right now for me. And so I'm going to give this one to 2025. Then we have the UK. Again, a song that makes me smile this year. Remember Monday, What the Hell Just Happened? And last year's song, Ollie Alexander. I was just so disappointed when I heard the song because I had such high expectations. The staging was not great. And so I am giving this one to the UK this year. So 1 point to 2025. Germany, I was quite excited when we chose Bala, La 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 La. However, this song has grown off me so much, might have to do with the fact that everyone around me seems to hate this entry with a passion and not understand why this won the national final. And Isaac, even though the song was very radio, very generic, he performed the hell out of this song. And so, maybe surprisingly to some of you, I decided to give this one to 2024. Then we have Croatia, another very easy battle for me because Baby Lasagna was one of my favorites. Amazing entry, cool meaning, well staged. And Poison Cake, I just can't. I'm sorry, I just can't. And so I'm giving this one to 2024. Then we have Greece. That's a harder one for me. Incredibly different entries, but so good in their own way. A great, great ballad this year, great vocals, cool lyrics. Same thing last year, cool meaning for the song, but a very different feel, obviously, very up-tempo. Very charismatic performers for both of them. Both have subpar staging at the moment. Maybe Clavdia will come up with something that will convince me a bit more. But in the end, I am just a Sari fan through and through, so I'm giving this one to 2024. Then we have Cyprus, Celia Kapsis versus Theo Evan. I'm not a great fan of either of these songs. Both feel quite generic to me. Celia Kapsis last year feels the most generic thing I have ever seen, kind of thing. And Theo Evan, at least, it's quite experimental in some ways, even though I don't love all the experimental stuff going on in that song. But I have decided to give this one to 2025. Then we have Israel. Quite similar songs, to be honest. Good vocals, but pretty standard ballads. But I'm giving this one to 2025 because it's not as much of a standard structure as Hurricane was. Then we have Luxembourg, Laura Thorne versus Tali and Fighter. I like both of them quite a bit, but Laura Thorne's entry is a bit too sweet for me, a bit too child-friendly in a way. And I was quite a big fan of Tali's entry, even though I didn't love the staging, didn't get the leopard appearing at some point during the song. But still, I'm going to give this to 2024. Then we have Malta, Serving by Miriana Conte this year, and then Sara Bonici last year. I just felt last year was so style over substance, and I think it came last in its semifinal, right? So people kind of agreed with me on that. Kind of an impressive choreography, but the song just wasn't really there at all. And Serving, I had a lot of problems with the pun, but now the pun is gone, and now I see it as a fun, powerful performance, quite modern as well, and she performs it quite well. The staging is just way too over the top for me, but overall, this point goes to 2025. So 3 points between 2025 and 2024, a bit closer than at the beginning. Let's see who the next country is. San Marino, Tutta l'Italia this year versus Megara last year. And I liked Megara. I liked the anime staging that they chose. But Tutta l'Italia, the song, is just one of my favorites. The staging doesn't work at all for me, and I'm fearing that they're not going to change it. But the song is just so good that I'm going to give this point to 2025. And then last but not least, we have Ukraine, Ciferblat versus Teresa and Maria, Alyona and Jerry Heil last year. I liked Ciferblat a lot more than a lot of fans seem to. They're always quite low in a lot of the rankings. Lots of things to like there, but last year's entry, which has to do a lot with the staging, so they have a bit of an advantage here. But I just love watching that performance. It's just so well staged. The contrast between Jerry Heil and Alyona is so well done, and just everything about it is so dramatic and well done as well. And the song has not grown off me as much as I might have thought it would happen after Eurovision, and it has happened with some of the other songs of 2024. So I'm giving this point to 2024. And that is our overall result. 2025 has made it 20 points versus 2024 with only 17 points. Quite a surprise to me. I thought I liked 2024 more. But once we see the stagings, maybe that will change a bit as well. Maybe there's a bit of recency bias. I don't know. Do let me know in the comments who would win your 2024 versus 2025 battle, and then we can discuss it. Do subscribe to this channel if you don't want to miss any of my future videos. Lots of fun things coming your way until the Eurovision final. And also don't forget to vote in the Eurovision knockout. Lots of you already have, but there are a few heats that are very, very close, so your vote might actually make the difference. I'll put the link in the description once again. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video if you do subscribe. See you then, and bye-bye.